We're going to be building a React form in TypeScript, and we're going to be using two libraries to help us out. The first one is Material UI to make it look pretty and use it for styling, and the second is Formik, which is a form library which makes it very easy to create forms. So we're going to be starting out with create React app, and I ran it using the -- TypeScript flag, and it just creates this little boilerplate project. And then I have it open right here. I already ran that command, and I gave it a name and all that jazz. And I went to app.tsx and I got rid of all the junk inside of it, and I just have a vanilla function right here where I'm rendering a div. So this is where we're going to start. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to install Material UI and Formik. So to install these, if we go to the Material UI docs, we can grab the installation, which is yarn add Material UI /core. And we also need to add this Roboto font. So let's do both of those. So we're going to paste this in, and we're also going to install Formik. And because we're using TypeScript, we're going to need to install the types. Formik already comes with types. Material UI does not, so we're going to have to install them separately. So to do that, we're going to just say add a dev dependency, Material UI, like that. All right, let's add this font. So we're going to copy this link tag, and we just add this to the heading of our HTML. So since we're using create React app, it's in public index.html, and we can just paste this anywhere inside of here. I'll put it right there. And at some point we may be using icons, so I'm going to go ahead and just import these just in case, or install these. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with our form. So the first thing I'm going to do is just create a new file to put everything in, which I'm just going to call myform.tsx. And we're going to just create a little snippet of code here. And my snippet's loading and it's lagging, so we'll just write it out ourselves. We're going to say import star as React from React. So that's how we import React in TypeScript. And then we're going to create an interface. It's going to be our props. So what the props, we're going to have to create a interface of all the types that we're going to accept as parameters. In this case, we're going to accept a single on submit. So this is going to be a function. We're going to fill this in with parameters at some point. We'll come back to that. So I'm going to say const myform, and we're just going to return a single text field just to make sure everything is working. And this is going to be coming from Material UI, and I'm just going to restart my TypeScript server because it seems to be a little laggy. So you can do this if you want to as well. If you hit Command P or Control P, and you can do Command Shift P to bring this up, and you just say restart TypeScript server. And so this is something I generally run now and then when I feel like TypeScript's being slow or something. All right, so we're going to import from Material UI, and it's going to be core. I'll just grab that text field. Now we're going to say react.functional component, and then in the angle brackets here, we're going to put our props. So we're accepting a single prop, which is called onSubmit. All right. Wow. Okay, there we go. Now let's come back over to our app and just render it. Did I not call it myform, or is it? It's so odd. Yep, we called it myform, but we didn't export it. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's go check this out. We need to pass in an onSubmit. So we should see a single line, we could type in it, and this is our text field. So now let's actually introduce our form. So I said we're going to use Formik, so I'm going to say Formik and Formik. And Formik is a render prop right now, so we can do it like this. And then what I like to do is I like to just wrap my component inside of there. So when this is all said and done, you should have Formik, and then you should put everything inside of the function in the middle. And Prettier got rid of my parentheses, but let's add those back because we're going to add some more fields to this. So I'm going to wrap the whole thing in a form field. This form field is coming from Formik, and Formik is coming from Formik. So let's install both of those, or import both of those. Now, Formik accepts a few things. The first is initial values as a parameter. Here we specify all our what we want our form to contain. In this case, we're going to do a simple form. We're just going to say first name, which is going to be a string, last name, and then email. All right, and then you need to pass in what you want to do when it submits. In our case, we're just going to call on submit. So we're going to pass in a function. And the first parameter is the fields, or the values. So I'm just going to pass those to the submit function, which we get from our props. And you'll notice it's complaining about this because we didn't specify our field values and on submit. So we're going to say values is equal to values, and we have a first name, which is a string, a last name, and an email. All right, so next up is we have this form. We have a single text field. What we want to do now is when we type stuff, it should be updating the form. So we can do this by saying values, and we can say value is equal to values dot, and then we can pick which one we want. I'm going to have this be the first name, and then you can specify the name of this field. So we're going to call it first name, and again, this should match what we have up here. So first name, and then on change, we can pass in the handle change function that Formik gives us. Handle change. And Formik can also handle blurring for us, so we can grab the handle blur if we want. And on blur, we can pass in the handle blur. Okay. So now if we come over here and we type some stuff in, well, actually, we're not really going to see anything so different. So let's go ahead and just say, let's do our pre-tag. And we're just going to json.stringify the values so we can see the state of our form as we type. And let's make it pretty by saying null, comma 2. All right, so here we can see the state of our form, and then as we're typing here, we can see it updating the first name. So great. So we can create a field for each one of these. And then all we're changing is the last name and then email. And these are awkward. I'm also going to do a placeholder. First name, last name, and then email. So we can get these like stacking more like a form if we wrap them in a div. Oops. Now we can come back here, we can see our first name, last name, all that fun stuff. So Bob, Bob2, Bob3 at bob.com. So now as we type, we're filling in the forms. The last part here is we can submit the form. So the way we can submit it is, I guess we'll put our button right here. So I guess, what was it called? Raise button. We're going to say type is equal to submit. And we're going to say submit. So we'll give that a save. Now, basically what's going to happen when this button is clicked or the user presses enter is it's going to submit the form. Now, because we put the type submit here, that's why it's going to get submitted. And in our submit, this is what's going to happen when the form is submitted, which just calls on submit, which is whatever the function is the user passed in. So if we come back to our app over here, in my form, we're passing in this prop. So this is what's going to be called when it's the form is submitted. It's going to come all the way back up here. So here we're just going to log it, but you can do whatever you want here. Email, first name, last name. So we'll just print all three and we'll give that a save. So let's try this out. Looks like Material UI. Let's do core. And I'm going to do organize imports so it nicely meshes together. This raised button, not a thing. Let's see what kind of button this is. Okay, just a regular button. Let's see, is this, cannot find button, there we go. Also, I did that kind of fast. I did Command Shift P and then organize imports to fix that. And it just basically reduces or gets rid of any unused imports, joins imports from the same library and cleans them up and sorts them too. All right, so let's go ahead and do this, do this, do that. Open up our console. And now when I hit submit, we can see the values. So awesome. So there's one last thing that I wanted to introduce to you, and that is the idea of a, back to our form, that is the idea of a custom field in Formik. So you'll notice our text field, basically, we're just kind of redoing the same logic over and over again. And that is passing in handle change, handle blur. Really the only thing is changing is what we pass in as the name and what we pass in as the placeholder. So we can abstract that into just a simpler field. So here we're going to call it my field. And nice, my thing is working. So this is just my little snippet. This will just create a boilerplate for a component. So we're importing from React. We have interface for props. We're exporting this function. And you'll notice I'm using the same type definition. And then we just have a function here. So here's where we're just going to copy our text field. And we're going to basically, all the places where it's unique, we're going to take those as a parameter. All right. So here's where, instead of props like this, I'm going to say field props, and this is coming from Formik. So field props has, and actually, you know what? Let's do it like this. So I was going to just put field props here, but I think I also want to accept some other props. So I think it'll be simplest if I just say interface props up here, and then I can have it extend field props. I could also, if I wanted to, do like field props and say we want to accept a placeholder like that. We could do that as well. But I'm going to do this style. I think it looks a little cleaner. All right, so we're going to pass in our props. So if the placeholder, we're going to pass into the placeholder. Now the other things are going to be coming from Formik, and that's why we extended this field prop. So it's going to be giving us a field and a form. So field is what we can just put on top of this. So we can say ... field, and that's going to handle value, on change, on blur, name, all that stuff. And form is what we can use for errors, which we may do at a later point, but we actually don't need access to it right now. Form has some other good stuff, some Formik props that we can access here. And field, you can destructure this to see what it has. Name, on blur, on change, value. Okay. And let's see what this is complaining about. Can't find the name. Let's import that from Material UI core. Nice. All right, so this is done complaining. Let's go ahead and see how we can use this new field that's generic. So we're going to say, instead of this text field, we're just going to say field. And this is imported from Formik, right? So here we're going to specify the name And this is the thing that's going to be unique. So we're going to say first name, and then we can pass in a placeholder, first name, and then we can get rid of everything else. So you can see that simplifies this quite a bit. So last name, whoops, there we go, and then email. So you can see as you have a large form and you're doing kind of the same thing over and over, you can simplify it quite a bit. All right, so you can see by default we have ugly fields again, and that's because I forgot to pass in the component to the field. And this is where we're going to pass in my custom field over here. So component to my field, and then we don't need these props anymore. All right, so same thing. You can see as we're changing it, we're getting values, we can submit, and we see stuff there. So that is all well and good. So we added these custom fields. The one last thing that I wanted to also mention was there's other fields that we can add to the text field. So if we come back over here, right, this is a Material UI one. I think they have maybe a label. See where that renders. I believe that comes up here or something. No label. Oh yeah, there's the label. So let's say we wanted to accept the label. Maybe I'd come in and I'd say label is a string. And then we can pass in the unique label, right? This is more of a TypeScript thing to save us some time. But anyway, I can pass in a label to the first name now, and we can have that there. Now the thing is, there's a bunch of props that go to the text field here, and I don't really want to just keep saying, filling them in as my type definitions here, or my interface, keep adding it, because it's a waste of time. What we can do is we can actually grab all the props that are accepted by Material UI. And the way we do that is just by hovering over this. We can see that this is called a text field props is the name of it. And this is where we can say props extends field props, but it also is going to extend this, and we're going to get it from Material UI core. Text field props. Oh, okay, it doesn't come from that. I guess we'll get it from this. I'm not sure which one it's going to be better to get it from. Let's get it from this one, see. I'm guessing interface can only extend objects statically known. So we don't need these things anymore now. It's going to know about it from this. Now I didn't like it. Let's try this last one, /text field. And it doesn't like this one either. Maybe it's because I'm extending. What if I did this? Field props and text field props. All right, that seems to be happier now. But now you'll notice if we look at the type definition, and I did that by just saying control space, I can see all the types. We can see it knows about all these different types because we added text field props. So now we're going to get type definitions with that. All right. So that's just a little trick. I'm not actually going to use the label, or maybe I do want to feed the label into the placeholder. Nah, we'll just do it like that. It's fine. Keep it simple. Would I have it? There we go. Now, one thing that I think, I'm not sure if you can get with the field. Oh, yes, you can. You just have to pass in the generic there. So you'll notice, like, for example, we're not getting any auto completion here. Well, I guess we are kind of. Maybe like on change or something. You see how we don't get anything there? That's because this field, it says it is of type any. So we can pass in the generic my field, I think. And then it knows about it possibly. Expected 0 type arguments, but got 1. Oh, you know what? Maybe it doesn't expect a generic here. Anyway, that was something where I'm not exactly sure how to get the type definition for the props that we can pass to my field on the field. Because basically anything that we pass to the field, so if I type Bob hello, that's going to get passed to the my field component. And you'll notice there's no like type checking here, where Bob is obviously not a prop we accept in my field, but it's not checking it. So I haven't figured out a way to get those to check each other, but I know how to do it where we can check the props here and here. Anyway, that is how you create a form with Material UI. I'm getting rid of this label, Formik in React and TypeScript, all that fun stuff. In the next video, we're going to take this a step further, I think, and we're going to show how we can integrate this with a table. See you next time.